Good evening, everyone. My name is Jamil Johnson. I'm the civic engagement organizer for the NAACP Mississippi State Conference, and I'll be the moderator today for the youth engagement and organizing panel. We have three esteemed panelists today that I'll introduce now. First off, Ms. Pierre Shea Goodwin, the immediate past president of the NAACP chapter at Tougaloo College and a current senior at Tougaloo. Next, we have Jarius Adams, a research associate at Mississippi Votes, and a first year law student at Howard University School of Law in Washington, D.C. And lastly, we have Shawnee Rickman, a native of Peoria, Illinois, and a 2020 graduate of Jackson State University, where she received her BA in Business Administration and currently is the Deputy Organizing Manager at Mississippi Votes. Thank you for participating today. So, we're gonna get started, and we're just gonna ask. I'm gonna ask a few questions to get us warmed up, and everybody can know a little about you. So, the very first question is, what is organizing to you all? And we'll start with Shawnee.
Okay. I would say organizing for me is just creating relationships with people who are able to empower themselves and able to empower other people when it comes to the work that we do and to be able to have an impact of positive change.
Jerry's.
Thank you so much for having me. And I think that that question is so important, right? Like organizing to me is whenever a group of folks get come together to work towards a common goal. I think it can be, in person or like we've seen over the last year or two over Zoom or virtually. But when folks work together to solve an issue or to make something happen.
And PSA.
Thank you for having me, Jamil. And I'm a little young in the organizing game, so I think my definition of what is organizing to me is still growing. But I've definitely learned that, like Shani said, it's building relationships for a collective cause. But that collective cause is kind of something that everybody is tied to because we're all so passionate about it and whatever it may be. But essentially, it is building within a community or building a community that just isn't there yet.
Makes sense. So, my next question is, what is being a young organizer mean to each of you? And we can start with PSA.
It means to me that I can say that something is bothering me, or I can say that I want to change something, and there are people there to support that and support me. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Jerry's.
Yeah, to me, being a young organizer consists of a lot of things. I have mixed feelings about it. I think that we have huge shoes to fill um, based on the work that has been done over the last century. But I think that it also is a lot of pressure. Sometimes there aren't many resources. It means compromising what you would be doing for the things that you should be doing. It's a lot of things, right? Sometimes it's staying in one place that you don't necessarily want to be in, but that you need to be in. And sometimes it's building relationships across colleges and across cities to make sure that something gets done. So I think that being young and being an organizer sometimes is a trend on social media or across states, but it's a lot of work.
And I'm going to come back to that point talking about trends and social media. I like that frame of thought. But Shawnee, what is being a young organizer mean to you?
Um, to me, I would agree with the Jerry, especially it's a lot of work. Um, I think, being a young organizer, it's seeing what people have done in the past and seeing how we can do things differently, how we can be, get things, to change and be effective. And also being able to stand up for ourselves because, we have a lot of people who are older who came before us, but also being young and be able to um, grow in those those spots and be able, once we get older, we like know what we're doing, and we can be able to pass on down to the younger generation. So just pretty much like building up from, you know, at a younger standpoint until, you know, we get older and be able to pass down to our children.
Okay, so let's circle back to the point Jerry's made about it being a trend and social media and all of that stuff. So I want to be a little direct. How, as a young organizer, have you been able to separate the real from the fake? Like, have you been able to separate the folks that want to come for a photo op and seem like they're the greatest, they're Martin Luther King on the internet, and then when you're around them doing the work, they don't know anything, they don't know anybody, and they haven't really done anything. Shauna, we can start with you. Like, how is that? As somebody that has done a lot of work, how is it processing that? And maybe talk about like how we even in that environment. How is that even a thing?
I think I've realized that when I was younger, back in high school, when I first started organizing. And I had, like, you know, started off with a group of people who was actually serious about the work and actually, you know, getting our foot into like the ground. Um, and realizing like we had other people who were there to like support us. You know, like they were there for the cause, but when it came to actually putting in the work, they weren't there, but there were events, you know, taking pictures and stuff. And it's just like, this is not a show. Like, this is real life. We actually want change. And so I think having that, it was frustrating. And it is still frustrating. And you know, like we're young, so we're going to realize like who's actually putting in the work, who's actually serious about it. Um, but I would just say from like my standpoint, it is frustrating. But at the end of the day, when you do have like conversations with people and stuff, you realize who's actually in it for the win.
Okay, Pierre.
Okay, I've noticed, like personally, just even on my campus, you can separate really who is there and who's going to be at the meeting and at the event and at like the show up or the protester, who's ready to work, because they're only gonna do what they need to do to be seen as active on social media. They're not gonna show up at the meeting. They're not gonna show up at wherever they need to show up. So like Shawnee said, it is frustrating, but it's inspiring and motivating when you do find like at that group of 4 people or however many people it may be who actually do want to do the work. And I feel like that outweighs the work that can be done by those 4 people plus yourself. Really does outweigh the fake social media campaigns that people like to, you know, roll out. But you can tell because it's only on social media that's how you're able to tell those people are not active where they're supposed to be. So yeah,
you can identify folks who don't really put in the work by just watching them, right? Like, you know, just because you post something on social media, on Twitter or Facebook, and you get 2,000 likes does not make you organizer of the year. While it's helpful to get the message out, you got to show up in person. You got to put in the work by making phone calls and helping to organize events and lifting boxes, right? We done lifted a lot of boxes in the past couple of years, but that's the real work. You know, you can't be a doctor without going to medical school. You can't be a lawyer without going to law school. And you can't be an organizer without putting in the work. And that's what a lot of people are missing, not just in Mississippi, but across the country. We got to put in the work. And too many people before us and now are putting in work that some folks aren't willing to put in, but still calling themselves organizers. And organizing ain't for everybody. I'm not saying that, but if you're going to have the title, you got to put in the work.
I definitely agree. So in terms of, you know, putting in the work and starting young organizers, I'm interested to know how you all got your start. And what type of materials or people or what experiences led you to want to organize. And then once you got into organizing spaces, how did you learn more? Did you read books? Did you talk to a lot of folks? Did you just work for a million campaigns and kind of caught it on the fly? And we can start back with you, Jerry. So, like, how did you get started in the work, and then how did you catch up and learn and excel as you went through it?
So back in 2015, Like in 2015, it was an initiative that I know many folks who are watching this are gonna remember, but Initiative 42 to fully fund public education in Mississippi. And actually, NAACP backed it and was, some of the folks who helped put it together. But I was 17 years old, and I got a call from some of the folks on the campaign saying that they wanted me to participate in some of the town hall debates that they had against some of the folks who were supporting the opposition. I'm hosted by the Secretary of State across the state. So being the student spokesperson for the campaign, I did that because I did competitive speech and debate, and I stuck with it. I was able to travel to schools across the state of Mississippi and just walking into schools and seeing that, teachers had to put metal pallets down when it was raining so that kids wouldn't, get their feet wet when it was raining, or they didn't have enough money to fix their entire roof. So they had to patch it up, and it was leaking. And looking at some of the conditions of the restrooms and the cafeteria, it really touched my heart at 17. And, I've been involved with several other issues since then outside of education. And you see the same thing, right? Like a lack of interest from our leadership, and a lack of funding. And a lot of it was connected to folks in minority communities and low income communities. And that really touched me. So ever since then, truly since 2015, every year, I have been on a campaign, worked on initiatives, interned for this, that, just stayed involved because I was really passionate about it. But that's how I started.
And don't just for the people watching, don't let Jerry sell himself short. He was a national champion in speech and debate a few times over, kind of a Mississippi legend in it. So he didn't just randomly get the call. It's kind of famous. Anyway, Shawnee, how did you get your start? Uh, and what kind of helped you learning? You figure out the ropes when you started organizing.
I started organizing back in 2016, right after I graduated high school. And what kind of like got the kickoff of that, I think Sandra Bland had just happened. And then there was a girl that I competed against actually in speech and debate. And she just like randomly DM'd me and was just like, I'm sick of all this stuff that's going on. She was like, especially like in our community, like, what can we do? And me, I've never done anything before, but I was just like, like we can try to, do something in our community, speak on it, get the community together, like our peers and the adults in our community and see, what we can do. Never done this before. So we have like a meeting and we end up having our own like protest and was able to get, good 200-300 people in our little town to come join us. We had officers there that we're able to have like conversations with us of voicing our opinions. And that pretty much like started for me. And I was just able to get involved more in my community and the organizations that we had. Then later on, I moved to Mississippi, and it was just like, from Illinois to Mississippi, it's a big difference. So just learning, the community, especially like in Jackson. So I joined organizations, was able to, listen in, get the feel of everything. And I think I started off, NAACP at Jackson State's chapter, was a first vice president there, and hosting our events, and then eventually joining the SB campaign, and that's where I really got more into getting into the field, organizing in Mississippi, and the help of Mississippi Votes with Erika, and developing my skills and becoming a better organizer and knowing what I wanted to do and how I can help people out in the community as well as across the state.
And Piesha.
So I think my first time organizing was in like 2017 or 2018. I was still in high school and I did not know that it was organizing at this point. But I went to a very, 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 very white high school, and it was about 82 Black students out of 1,800 like students in the entire school. And we never, out of our whole 4 years of high school or up until this point, we didn't have a space for Black students to congregate. We didn't have after school programs or like any special events for Black students. And we only had one administrative member that was African American. And so I guess we were just fed up and we said we're going to beg our vice principal for a Black student union. And our school had never had a student union. And so we did it and we got him to be the advisor. And that was the first time like I learned that like sometimes you just got to do stuff even though everybody's talking about you. And we organized a student walkout. I think this was right after the Parkland shooting in Florida. And we didn't know that it would be such a big deal, and that the news would come out and that like other schools would also walk out. It was like 17 degrees this day. So we were like, oh my God, we did it. And so I didn't do anything like that throughout the rest of high school. And then when I got to Mississippi, like Shani said, like it was a completely different world. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. And then one day I was hanging out at the library and I met this guy named Jamil. And he was like, I'm going to take you under my wing. And our other friend, Alvin, at the time, was the president of the Tougaloo College chapter of the NAACP. So they quite literally took me under their wing. And since then, I guess it's just been up. And yeah, it's a lot of reading books. It's a lot of talking to people and meeting people that you might only meet once, but you probably want to remember them because you're probably going to need them. Yeah, it's just been a journey. And I feel like me wanting to be a lawyer in the future, organizing will never end. Like I'm always going to be that. So, yeah.
That is great. One, shout out to Speech and Debate. I don't know if Shay did Speech and Debate, but three of us, it's critical thinking skills, speaking, all of that, really prepared you for a lot of stuff. I wasn't like Jerry used, but I was 42 in the nation in public forum for like a day or two. But I didn't go to a school like his where they had all the money where they could go everywhere in the country. We just kind of did what we could. But anyway, I'm not gonna stop picking on him about that. But this next question is one I'm actually really excited to ask y'all. I've never really thought about it myself, but when I was making the questions, thinking about what I wanted to ask, I was like, it popped in my head, and I was like, wow, this could be really cool. So, if y'all like follow any sports or anything, and y'all following the page on Instagram, a lot of times they'll be like, build your perfect basketball player, right? They'd be like, have LeBron James' mind, Michael Jordan's athleticism and killer mentality, Steph Curry's 3-point shot, stupid, silly stuff like that, right? What I want to ask y'all is, if you could build your perfect organizer, what qualities and what individuals would you put together, right? And I haven't thought about this super deeply, so I don't know perfectly what mine would be. I think I'll probably want somebody with like maybe Kwame Toure's politics, maybe Malcolm X's, principle, um, you know, something like Hollis Watkins, like community organizing experience, and then throw in some extra charisma and some more stuff like that, right? So, and if you can't think of people, no pressure, but just qualities, like what makes a good organizer. If you could put together the absolute perfect organizer that's just gonna do it all and gonna inspire the masses and gonna be a team worker and all of that, how would you build them? And we can start with Shani.
Ooh, starting off with me. Okay. Let me see. If I could build a perfect organizer, I don't think I can think of people right now top of my head, but as far as like characteristics, I would try, someone that had like great people skills, was able to, easily communicate with, um, someone, that, yeah, like easily connects with people, very empathetic, towards people. Um, Also down for like, business, organized, ooh, passionate, so just someone like with a good mix of qualities. Yeah.
Shay.
Okay, I wrote down 4 people. Okay, I would want Angela Davis's pride and passion, and Ella Baker's like ability to just simply organize because she was the GOAT. And then Fred Hampton's like charisma and his speech? Is that the word that I'm looking for? Like the way that he can talk, his dialect, because he can like sell Eskimos. And Huey Newton's like brashness, because sometimes you need to be a little aggressive. And so, yeah, that would be my 4.
Her like we're working with so far. Jerry's.
So I tried to hurry up and jot me down some folks. So I think Fannie Lou Hamer, how hard of a worker she was, and her passion for the things, specifically voting rights for her, but just a hard worker and a passionate person. I think Colin Kaepernick is a good example of someone who's firm. Out of many years have gone by, and he's stuck by his story. He could have folded and gone and got the money, but he stood by what he believed in, flat-footed. And then the Obamas, their swag and their likeness, I think that doesn't hurt, right? Like when people like you, when you can, win over a crowd, when you can listen to people, have been a good listener. So combination of those characteristics and those people.
I like that. Okay, and Shawnee, I realized it was probably a little unfair to put you on the spot first. So after hearing the answers, is there anything else you want to add to yours, or like any other new thoughts you got about it?
Nah, I'm good.
Okay,
But y'all have good people though. Yeah.
All right. Relationships. And this is a question. This is something really important. In organizing. And something that I struggle with sometimes because I don't like to talk to people until I like to talk to people. So sometimes it's hard for me to build long-term relationships and kind of just keep the small talk until I'm ready to just have conversations. So if you could talk to yourself a few years ago, or just talk to a new organizer now, what advice would you give them about building relationships and organizing and the importance of it? And we can start with you, Jerry.
Yeah, I think relationships can really make or break an effective organizer. Like you can be an organizer without many relationships, but being really effective, being able to organize people quickly. People have to trust you. Like you have to be able to, call people up. Like, if I was organizing in Hattiesburg, I'm gonna call a set of people. If I was organizing in Jackson, I'm gonna call a different set of people. If I was organizing in Oxford or Starkville, I'm gonna call a different set of people. Right? Like I know everyone on this call, and we have not spent a lot of time with each other like personally, like out having fun or whatever, but we've done a lot of work together as far as organizing in Mississippi. And when I call y'all answer. When y'all call me, I answer because I know it's something about to happen and I need to get on it, right? And those are the relationships that I'm talking about. So anytime that someone says that, this person just moved back to Mississippi, who's been gone for however many years, doing whatever education, working somewhere, or this young person is interested in organizing, or this person works on this campaign. I want to meet everybody, right? Like I want to know everybody. I want to shake their hand. I want to talk to them. I want to exchange numbers because you never know when you're going to need them or when they're going to need you, right? So I think that relationships are so key. You don't necessarily have to talk to everybody every week, every month, but we know how it goes. Like you just gotta, when you need people.
And it doesn't help that a lot of organizers like to talk anyway. So I like to hear themselves talk and talk to other people. So we can go to you, Shay.
I want to go back to something that Darius said that was really important about needing people. I would tell myself that everyone like needs everyone in this arena. And it kind of takes, for me, it takes some of the anxiety away of like building a relationship with someone. Because of course you meet someone important like in the organizing room and you probably already know like not what you're going to need them for. I don't want to make it sound like that, but like you probably already know like the purpose that they're going to fulfill or what benefit they're going to bring to whatever cause you're getting. So I think it's, if you understand that you can be of use as well, just like everybody else around you, it's a lot easier to build that relationship. And also, like, be personable. Like, I feel like the best relationships I've built in this have been with people who I've had conversations with that didn't have anything to do with organizing, or like, just building something outside of your actual work, that'll allow people to trust you and allow people to feel like they can depend on you and feel like, or give themselves to you so that you can depend on them. So
I want to add on to that. I know I'm jumping out of line, but Shay said something that was important, and I think that people need to remember. The point of getting to know people is to know what everyone brings to the table, right? I wouldn't call Shani to run social media for me. I just wouldn't, right? A person probably wouldn't call me to run social media for them. I probably call Tim or Lydia, some other people that I know. So you got to be strategic about it. And that's why you can't just rely on 2 or 3 people, because there's so much that needs to be done and everybody brings something different to the table. So depending on um, what needs to be done, that will tell you who you need to reach out to. And so strategically in your mind, you don't treat people like the only thing that they can do is X, Y, and Z. But realistically, to get the job done, right, you got to be realistic about it and say, this person, this is their, until proven otherwise, this is your area, right? Until proven otherwise, this is what you do. So I think it's important to be strategic about it.
Yeah. The way I look at leadership isn't that I don't want a leader. I don't want to lead. I want everybody to know what they're best at and how we can fit together and build a community. And the true leadership is knowing how we can complement each other and work together. So Shani, what are your thoughts on relationship building and organizing? And if you could talk to yourself, talk about the importance, of building relationships. Or
If I could actually go back and talk to my younger self, I would say to be more open, because I am a shy person, and so that was something I had to get out of with organizing, because you can't be shy. So it's just like me just getting out of my shell, being more open to people. And it's definitely important to build those relationships, figuring out like what connects you with someone, like what do you guys have in common, and like striking up a conversation that way and building out that relationship and just figuring out how to connect. I did like what something Shay had said earlier. She was like, it might be somebody you meet one time, but you're going to need them later on, especially in the whole organizing realm. Like, it's small. we're going to know organizers from all over, and we're all going to be connected somehow. I know Jarius knows people out in DC. Some people in DC, like, they are interested in something Mississippi. Oh, I know someone from Mississippi. Let me hit up Jarius. So it's a very small community that we have, but we do a lot of work. So just connecting and building off right there.
So I want to talk about building community and the importance of community next. One of the best things about how my parents raised me, and I would imagine as well as far as I know, it was similar. Yeah, upbringing. It was never just you and your parents and your siblings in the house, right? Like, I always had, or half the time I had a cousin or somebody that was staying with us. My grandma stayed with us on and off until she stayed with us permanently for a lot of my life. I grew up around, I grew up in the movement, so I grew up around I got all types of godparents and aunties and uncles who I work with now, and the relationship is, changed over time. But it's really taught me the importance of, being open and just trying to help folks whenever you can, and just knowing it's not just about you. Um, so my question is really, how do you build community? What's the importance of building community, and why do we need to build it? And I want to ask that specifically because a lot of times, especially with the advent of social media, um, we create a lot of made up separators between ourselves. Like, personally, I hate the shade room, right? Because I feel like the shade room is just a spot where they post whatever random news, and then everybody get on the comments and pile on whoever's going on, right? They'll post a gay person on the shade room, so then everybody can be in the comments like, they so stupid, they don't like black people, they want to work with us, right? They'll post a black woman or a black man doing something bad to another black woman or black man and be like, black women only do this, they not worth it. And then black men only do this, they not worth this, right? They'll do the same thing with trans folks, immigrants, and generally, what happens is on social media, we get into these like fake fights with each other. They don't really exist, right? When we could argue, we can have some struggle, we can have some tension around our identities and who we are and what we believe, but we can use that to collectively build a better community. And I think a lot of times folks our age lose sight of that because the idea of just get money is just growing and growing with folks our age. Capitalism is what it is. Um, but and from here, if y'all just want to unmute and say something, try not to cut anybody off. But I feel like we can open the conversation up a little bit more. But what does building community mean to you? Like, and why is it so important to build community through organizing?
Okay, I'll go. Oh, okay, Jarius, I got you. Okay. So I think in all the communities that I've seen, like that are most important to me, the ways that they've been built. What is built? The ways that those communities have been built is that a set of needs have been met for people, right? And I feel like after those needs are met, or like this community serves some purpose for this group of people, like it does something or gives them something in some way. And so I feel like the importance of those communities is, or my personal outlook on it, is that I use kind of my communities to define myself, if that makes sense. Because when I look at my communities, I'm seeing like what I need or what I'm made of, kind of, and like what my composition is, because I don't belong to any community that doesn't have a piece of me or hold a piece of me. So it's important to us, and it's important to build community because it allows you to kind of make your own narrative and define exactly, I guess, yourself and what you need out of life or what your purpose is in life. Like each community each community that you're a part of should tell you something different about yourself, I guess. So
I would say this is a loaded question. I think our responsibility to each other, and not just organizers, but just anyone, is to start with education. We have to educate each other. Like, I come from, a family who they're passionate about a lot of issues. I'm sure, like many families, but many folks in my family didn't vote until I started getting involved in politics. Right? My mama hadn't voted since some president, I forget which one, but it was a while ago. It was a while ago, and she got more involved and has been involved ever since. But just educating folks, and we have to remember that educating folks does not mean bashing people, right? As much as I want to, people who voted for that president, as much as I want to, but we just have to educate and move forward and let people know why this is this way, why this shouldn't happen, and make that connection. Because people turn off otherwise. I have a rule for myself, and mostly all of my friends, I normally don't. We don't argue with people on social media. I don't argue with people through a screen, right? I barely argue with somebody via Zoom, right? Like I just don't do it. Because you can hide behind a screen, type, and say what you want to say. But when I'm talking to somebody and I'm in a argument, debate, or whatever, I want you to hear me. I want you to see me. But I don't do it because it's just so many people out there, so many fake accounts. I've had death threats through social media, several of them. And I ain't responded to them one of them. I screenshot it, send it on over to the police or to whoever, and gone about my business. But yeah, social media is a gift and a curse. It truly is. But you have to understand that there's a life outside of social media. You use social media for what it is and how it can be useful for whatever you're doing, and get out. Because you get stuck in it, your mind, you get to judging yourself to other people. Some of the things that folks are saying, you may say that it doesn't hurt you, or if you fit a category of people that they're attacking, you're going to think about it later. It's not good for your mental health. But as far as a community, especially Black folks in Mississippi, we got to come together. It doesn't always mean that we all got to come to Jackson in March. It doesn't always mean that we got to, you know, be on Zoom or whatever. But we need to show up to the ballot box, right? Like we need to speak out against things that are harmful for our community. And we should have safe spaces for us to express those opinions. So educating ourselves, showing up, and being consistent with one another, I think will really make a difference.
I think what, going off Jerry, is consistency is very important when it comes to our community. Because, you have people who come in and out and they don't really know much about it, but having people who are consistent and know the community is definitely beneficial. And educating people as well, and be able to share resources. And I think that's the problem with a lot of communities. They don't have the resources or know where to find the resources. So being able to know what they need, provide that information, and just educate everyone together. Because I know there's still like things I need to be educated on. So being able to find someone in the community that can help you with those understandings, learning together.
So in a I definitely agree with all of y'all, and I think that um like Jerry said, social media is a gift and a curse, and like Shay and Shawnee said, like we need to come together and we can all learn more. Um, but in terms of like building power in communities, and I think at this point I kind of want to shift into talking about more specific issues. Yeah, we can talk about more specific issues for about one more question. Then I ask a closer that's going to be another big, big brain if everything was perfect. If you had all the power question. Um, but let's stay talking about community for a little while. So my first question, and let's try to be brief because I got a couple questions I want to kind of rapid fire off. What are the issues concerning the communities that you come from or have organized in? And we can just leave it like, what are the issues that concern where you come from and organized in? And we can start with Shay.
Issues that concern the community that I come from, I'm just going to give two: definitely gentrification and gun violence. The community that I'm in, I would say voter discrimination and gender discrimination. Yeah.
Okay, Shawnee.
I would say for issues concerning where I'm from, I'll say gun violence is definitely one of them. Um, the one issues from where I'm currently in definitely is voter discrimination, as well as the education system.
All right, and Jerry's.
I think racial division within Hattiesburg is a real issue. Um, within businesses and access, and also with gerrymandering with our city council folks. If you look at the maps in Hattiesburg and look at how they've been really gerrymandered and people have been packed in districts um, intentionally, I think it really affects the outcome of some elections. So I would say that.
So I asked that question. So obviously ask a follow up. So for those specific issues, what do you think the people in your communities' ideas about them are? And how do they face them on the everyday? Like, and I kind of want to focus on the folks who don't necessarily, or the way we look at it a lot of times, don't necessarily have the time to try to organize around it, but are in the heat of it in a way. And we can start with you, Jerry's.
So I think that there are a lot of people who would be more passionate about the issue if they could connect the dots and understand um, how everything connects. So a lot of people, I'm big on voting, right? A lot of people vote in presidential elections. They think the president can solve all the problems, like the roads, the education system, all of it is not your president. Like it's the city council folks, the mayor and supervisors. So if people could connect those dots and have the information given to them, um, I think that people will show up. Um, People definitely have been using social media to voice their concerns. We see it all the time, but sometimes, since I only follow certain people, only friends with certain people, I only see it through a certain lens. But it don't always translate off of social media into action, or really into something that is sustainable. So I think people are speaking out sporadically, not really consistently. I think also that some people are, have gotten used to it and now expect it to be this way. And they've kind of gotten complacent. So there's a couple things there.
So, Shawnee, concerning the issues you talked about, gun violence and voter discrimination are the two places you talked about. How exactly do the people in the midst of it really put up with it, do you think?
So I can definitely tell you a story from Illinois. In my community, there's an organization that's Peoria Community Against Violence, and it was like specifically against gun violence that was going on in the community. However, the only problem with the organization was that everyone that was had held positions, they were all old and they were white. Peoria community is majority Black. The communities that are dealing with this problem, they're Black. And I went to a meeting, and me and my friends, we told them, we were like, hey, like the plan, the outline that you guys have to help the community, it's great, it's wonderful, but there's a problem. Y'all are all old and y'all are all white, and for y'all to step into a community, they're not going to listen to y'all. They're not going to listen to y'all at all. So trying to find someone in the community where people will actually can trust, who they will listen to, who they can connect with, that's what will help the community. That's what people will listen to, and try to bring it down. So once they listen to us, they have people that are a part of the community step in. They're able to talk to the people that are out in the street, have a conversation with them, because you go out in the street, you got a 14-year-old boy who's in a gang. He's not about to listen to this 65-year-old white man who don't even live in this community. First of all, he live in the suburb area. He's not going to listen to you, but he's going to listen to the 40-year-old man next door who's been in the gang before, who knows what the street life is about. He's going to listen to them. So it was just pretty much us telling them y'all have a great plan, y'all got the wrong people. And so I think that was something where my community, they were able to end up helping and getting people involved and knowing, who to connect with. So yeah.
I'm gonna come back to that, to something that you talked about in there too. Okay, and Shay, how do the people in the midst of the dealing with the problems you talked about, how do they deal with that on a day-to-day?
So unfortunately, unlike Peoria, Chicago does not have many organizing bodies for specific communities to tackle issues. And so the people that live through these issues, specifically gentrification, I'm just going to talk about that. We kind of, and I'm saying we because I was one of those people who's walking down the street oh, I have a white neighbor now. I never saw a white person in this neighborhood before. And so we lived through it by literally putting up with it. And I think I'm going to take Shani's idea and kind of see if there's a way where we can find one person in that neighborhood where the people there will actually listen to, or not listen to, but who they feel like they can trust enough to talk to. Because like Jerry said, I feel like we need to connect a lot of dots, and not until I connected the dots of a church getting torn down and a parking lot being placed there and a grocery store popping up somewhere where a grocery store hasn't been for the past 10 years. Not until I started noticing those things and connecting those things that I realized, okay, my community is going through this transition that's not really benefiting the people who this community was intended for. And so when we sit down together or we have somebody there who is able to connect the dots and kind of, like Jarius said earlier as well, educate everyone on truly what's going on, and see the bigger picture of everything, I think it'll be a little easier for us to fight back. But right now we're just putting up with it. And it hurts to say, but that's the reality. We're putting up with it.
So, and a lot of times I found, and I've seen and read, and in a lot of communities, there are people doing the active community organizing work. They just don't have the title. They might not necessarily even know what they're doing per se. They're just taking the mantle of being community leader, and just trying to help folks wherever they can. Um, so just kind of putting together everything y'all said, like there's a lot of folks who know what's up to a degree, and they're kind of sporadically tossing the ideas into the void, right? That's something that is increasing, and not necessarily a good thing with the advent of social media. It's just people just throwing their ideas into the void, right? uh it's there, but we don't really know who to talk about it. We don't know who we can trust to talk about it, and sometimes because of social media, where it's too adversarial on the day-to-day for us to be comfortable trying to talk about it, right? um then there's the folks who are just bored and had money or are retired now, and they just want to go be patriot. They want to paternalistically go help the poor black folks in the neighborhood because they whatever, right? They don't know any better, or they think they know better, or they feel like they can just do whatever they want, and because they have this money, or because they're white and have done X, Y, and Z, and they're like they know how to fix it best. They know better, right? And then there's the issue of like there's still not there's still not enough like of us coming together and organizing and like meeting the rubber in the road, or however you say that, right? So my next question, and I think I only have two more questions, right? I'm gonna ask one more on this topic because I said an hour. I'm gonna try to let y'all off of the hour. I got one more question on this topic, then I got a big brain like creative question I want y'all to think about for a second. So, as organizers, community organizers, what do you think um your responsibility? Well, not necessarily responsibility. How do you think in a best case situation, you and people you've worked with, or you can try to help guide the folks you've worked with to a to better outcomes, right? So, like in Jerry's, in your case, like how can you um sit down in Hattiesburg and really get folks to understand the importance of voting as you see it, right? Shawnee, how can you sit in Peoria and really, try to work with the gangs and and gang history in a lot of ways is interesting because they do good things, they do bad things. Like how can you work with them to um promote the betterment of your community, right? And Shay, how can you work with the folks in your community to prevent gentrification or create a stronger community to avoid the process as a whole? Um, and I said Jerry's first, so we can start with you.
So one of the points when you made about old folks, most of the time white men who just have money and want to come in and do XYZ. Listen, I'm not against a white man feeling bad and saying they want to give money and help out. The problem, just give the money. Listen, if you feel guilty, you want to help the poor black folk, help us, please. However, you can't come in and make the terms and the conditions of the contract. Not all by yourself. Now we can sit down and we can talk about what needs to happen, whatever. You listen, you may provide a couple of suggestions, and then we go from there. But I'm gonna take the money. But it's gonna be on our terms, and we're gonna do what we need to do and what we know is best for our community. And so, I think that I have proven a couple times in the past couple of years that when I'm given some money or the resources that I need and a budget, Shawnee knows, when we given a budget, right, and we get a goal or a task or whatever to complete, we can get it done, right? It's just difficult to have to do the organizing, the resource building, right? I'm trying to take care of myself, right? Like I'm taking time off of what I'm in school, at work, or whatever to try to complete whatever goal we're trying to complete. So specifically in Hattiesburg, and I'm excited to return back home eventually. I think that there has to be a meeting of the minds, right? All of these folks who probably have never had a conversation with each other. I'm talking about people who just on social media, people who've been doing it, been in the game for however many years, civil rights activists, folks, all the way down to high school students, having a conversation about the issues first, not action items, because we oftentimes meet together, want to talk for about an hour or two and find all the solutions. Then no, we got to take some steps. We've got to be strategic about this. Let's talk about what the issues are. Let's listen to each other, and take some time away, put some stuff together, and present ideas, right? Because I'm not a gatekeeper. I don't have all the answers. None of us have all the answers. We got to work together every step of the way. Every step of the way. You can't have the whole plan together, then expect people to come out and show up if they don't have any buy-in in it. They don't feel invested in it. This ain't they plan, this yours. You want them to come support you, right? So the moment that you get, folks involved in the process, because people want to feel like they are part, right? Even us, we want to feel like we are part of something. And I think that no matter what the issue is, folks will come together and we can solve it.
That was great. That was great. Everybody give a little hand clap. There you go. I like that answer. Y'all been doing great for real. This is my heart is warm and so full. This has been a great discussion. Shawnee.
I think for me, if I did like something like tied into the gun violence, um, and the gangs that are there, it's really with the gangs is trying to figure out what Jerry said, you strategize, but figure out what do they all have in common? Like, why are they, in the gang life? Because there's reasons why people get in and stuff. And it could be, their home life, they don't, some men may not have like a father figure. They don't have money. So like they're out in the streets robbing people because, they need to survive. So trying to figure out like how can we provide resources to keep more people off the streets, keep people, in schools, and keep them, interested with school, if they want to go to like a trade school or go to college, figuring out like what's their life goals. Um, but again, that's something that you have to strategize. You have to understand where people are coming from, um, and figuring out what ways would be beneficial, to help them. And that's something that's kind of hard to do in that instance, in those situations.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I think that and a lot of I like what you said because a lot of times people we try to write off folks for what they do and don't ever try to give any credence for how as a community we might be responsible for how somebody gets there or how we or just the pitfalls of life. So I definitely think just sitting down and taking the time with folks is a must in a lot of ways. Shay.
So I think I like how Jerry has called it like a process, and I wrote down the word like assessment, and I think that would be like the first step in any of our like processes or plans and figuring out how we can meet the needs of the communities that we're talking about. But specifically, I would have to assess the points in which the community or the near West Side community, which is the neighborhood that I'm specifically talking about, the points in which that community needs to grow or points in where we can grow, to prevent the process of gentrification. And then after that, I would like to see whose job it was to meet needs that weren't being met by the community before, and hold those people accountable, while simultaneously trying to figure out how to meet those needs ourselves, because the goal is a stronger community, guys. So it will be a process, definitely like Jerry has said, but now that we're talking about it, I guess I'm a little bit more inspired to actually take the process on, not by myself, but figure out a way to do this in real life. So thanks, Jamil.
Yeah. Okay. So like I said, one more question, and I'm gonna ask it. Let y'all cook for a second. Think about it. Right. And this is my favorite. I'm so excited to ask this question, y'all. It's gonna be great. Right. Okay. So if you had your own country, right? Perfect world, right? Like you literally, you don't have to fight with nobody. You don't have to deal with no isms, no patriarchy, supremacy, none of that. It's your world. We just living in it, right? What would it look like, and how would you structure it, and how would you make everybody's lives that live there amazing? Yeah, that's a great question. It's a great question. I'm gonna give y'all like 30 seconds to think about it, and then I'm gonna call one of y'all randomly. Well, I'll do this. Whoever's ready first, you can just unmute and go, because I don't want to just pick on anybody and call somebody when they're ready. So when you're ready, unmute, go, give me the spiel. I was gonna say something funny and make a country name with all of y'all names and put it together, but I forgot. I can't think of what I was thinking anymore. So when y'all ready, just unmute and go ahead.
Okay, I think the country's name would be Shanjirashe. Um, I think is everybody agreeing that that's the country's name, Shanjirashe? Okay. So I wrote down two things. First, if you make the choice to come to my country, like I would be blessed to have you like here and be like a productive citizen. And I feel like a citizenship process kind of strips people of rights that they should have while being in the country before they even like get the chance to even become a citizen. Like I just don't. I never understood why a citizenship process existed. Um, and also, I would think that, well, not think, but I think that public health would be at the core of public safety. And like by saying that, I mean that I believe that we would solve like any public safety issues we have by focusing on the public health of people and making sure those needs are met before we create problems for ourselves by not meeting those needs. So yeah, everything will be for the greater good of all the citizens.
I really can go down every issue and just like
Do
say
it. Just
whatnot.
do it. Go ahead, do it.
If we were in this world, I would say college would be free for Black folks. But in my world, some of the things that we went through would never have happened. So college would be free for education would be free for everyone. Healthcare, everyone would have access to healthcare. There wouldn't be any billionaires. Okay, wouldn't be capitalism. Would not be the system that we have. I think I create my own little system, but we would not. Voting would be mandatory. Everyone would be able. Once you turn 18, you can't not have your voting rights taken away. You can't have your voting rights taken away from you, no matter what you do. I mean, you literally have to like die and not be able to vote. Like, um, our whole prison system would be structured very, very differently. It's just gonna have like reentry programs and what the environment and the way that they're treated would be totally different. I mean, it's almost hard to think about what it should be because we're so used to what it has been. But a lot of things, I could rethink a lot of things. Climate change, with this gas, these cars and stuff, electric. Okay, if you can't make it to where you're going with an electric car, you don't need to be going there. So, yeah, but it would, like you said, it will be a perfect place. And this is in my head, right? Like this would be a perfect place. People would be happy. People will have things that they need, not necessarily everything you want, because wants are not necessary, but everything you need, you will have it, and folks will be contributing to society in some way, whether in the workforce or some specialized skill, and we'll make sure folks have that. And the last point is the policing thing, right? Um, you know, every time you call 911, an officer don't need to come. An officer does not have to intervene every time there's a situation. Um, Police officers are not trained to intervene in a lot of situations. So I digress, and I yield the balance of my time to uh, uh, my colleague, the gentle lady from Illinois.
Look, I love Jerry's Resort. I love to live there. Perfect country for me would definitely be one with college free, healthcare free, education. Just honestly, I feel like everything should be free food. I would think one where no one with power, I think everyone would be like on the same scale, you know, no one higher than the other. Um, let's see what else. My own country. Ooh, that's a lot. Um, no one would be homeless. Everyone would have somewhere to lay their head. Definitely, clothes on their back, be able to take care of their family. Um, I don't know how the policing would go. Definitely, I like what Jerry said. Police definitely don't have to be everywhere. They don't have to go to every call. Um, I think Shay has something.
I have a question. Okay, since we're talking about police, would we train the police to respond differently and respond as if their concern is public health, and not, or would we just take the whole police out of the equation and just give everybody counselors or something? I'm going for the like not calling them police, but having like a body that is trained to um, resolve conflicts and arbitrate and do what they need to do like on the street. But I want to hear the ideas since we keep bringing them up and saying I just want to hear.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able. We wouldn't be able to call them police. Like the name police wouldn't exist. They wouldn't have. You think of the color blue as police officers. No, we're gonna give them like purple or something. I don't know. If they have a color, everything you got to just reimagine everything about police because we need mental health resources in our schools. We need mental health resources on jobs. It should be like a requirement. Now all these big companies are getting directors of diversity and inclusion because it's like the thing now. We need a couple black people here, a couple black people here, and they manage that. But we need jobs need counselors. Like jobs need mental health resources. I think we should normalize that. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell y'all a little bit about my perfect world before we go. Like y'all said, like Shay said, I like the whole public health is first because I do think you can prevent a lot of stuff if you focus on the health of everybody generally. Everybody, no, you can't. Everybody has housing. Everybody has food. No police. Uh, Everybody has access to education if they want it. Everybody has access to the trade opportunities. And I want people their life to be dedicated about not what they attain, but like how they can fulfill themselves and their community. Like I want people to like to achieve their dream, not Hitler type dreams, but like dreams that are for everybody. Um, be able to achieve their dreams. Everybody should have a part of the means of production or whatever they're producing. Everybody should be in a labor union. And the labor union should work for the people. Like Jerry said, everybody should be able to vote, and no voter registration shouldn't be a thing. If you live there, you have a vote. And in my mind, and Jerry's might not agree with this. No vote is a vote, but you still got to check no vote if you're not voting. You know what I'm saying? I think you can make the conscientious decision to say that I don't approve of any of the candidates, but you have to make that decision and say you're making that decision rather than just not showing up. But yeah,
I can see the benefits. I'll allow that.
Yeah.
I see the benefits of it because I think it helps. When I'm looking at the numbers afterwards, like, oh wow, 40% of the people don't like either one of y'all. So
yeah, that would be that. I think that would show folks a lot. And I asked that question because the past the work I've been doing the past 2 months, I spent a lot of time interviewing folks. And for this panel, what I want the folks to see for the NAACP, I want them to see a bigger vision. I want them to see new ideas, and you know, in my mind, the world is crumbling around us. Right, we was all born between I think '96 and 2000, so it's like same stuff that was promised for folks before us is not promised for us now. You know what I'm saying? Like our parents and grandparents had it harder than us in a lot of ways, but what we walking into is gonna be a whole lot different than what they walked into through where we've been. So in closing, you know, Mr. Figures like to say, stay strong, keep the hope alive. Y'all stay strong, keep the hope alive. Stay creative always and forever. Just because it's like a certain way doesn't mean it has to be that way. Always think outside the box. Fight the power in every way possible you can. I really, really appreciate y'all showing up. This was a great conversation. It really made my day. Hope I did a good job as a moderator. If y'all have any last questions or thoughts or anything, I open up the floor. But again, thank you so much for taking the time out.
Thank you to Missing NAACP.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.